Why did we have load shedding after 2018? Well, Andre de Ruyter was just an incompetent coot. Apartheid and colonialism did not die in 1994. The GNU, firstly, is not a GNU. It is it's just a coalition arrangement. I left Eskom in 2017, and in 7 years, they have not presented something that is tangible.
Spread the fire. Welcome back to SMWX, and today I'm extremely excited to be joined by MKP MP, Mr. Brian Molefe. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on SMWX.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I must apologize for giving you the runaround.
Not at all.
You know, I'm a very shy person, so I was not forthcoming.
Well, not a day goes by when someone doesn't ask me, please bring Brian Molefe onto the channel. So I've delivered.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's great to have you here. Can you talk us through your decision to join Umkhonto weSizwe party and what considerations went through your mind that brought you to that important point in your political life?
Well, it's a simple fact that you can't keep on doing the same thing and hope for a better result or a different result. I think the MKP presents an opportunity to reimagine our contribution to a struggle to improve the lives of black people in South Africa, to liberate people from colonial apartheid. As I said, apartheid and colonialism did not die in 1994. But over the last 30 years, what we've been doing is the same things. Inequality has not improved. Unemployment has worsened, and poverty is still very high. So we have to stand back and think differently about what needs to be done. And I think that the MKP presents an opportunity for an inflection point where you can go into a space that allows you to struggle differently and to hope for different outcomes and have different goals and do things differently. Yes.
What did you make of the election outcome? Because, I mean, it was quite sensational what MKP was able to do in just, I think, 6 months of its life at that point.
I think MKP went into the election saying they want 2/3 majority. And to the extent that they did not get 2/3 majority, I think they were or must have been disappointed. But I was surprised personally that in such a short space of time, it was possible to mobilize so many people to take over KwaZulu-Natal and become the biggest political party in KZN, and in a short space of time, and to have 58 MPs in the National Assembly, and to achieve what they achieved in a space of 5 months, basically, because there was no MKP before December 16. There was talk of a party that will call itself MKP, but it was really, there were no structures, there was nothing. And to move in such a short space of time and to achieve what was achieved, despite the fact that they were hoping for a 2/3 majority, I think that what was achieved is still commendable.
And what did you make of the outcome of the coalition conversations and this decision of the ANC to collaborate with the DA and other parties, and, you know, the so-called GNU arrangement that we have? What do you make of it?
The GNU, firstly, is not a GNU. It is it's just a coalition arrangement to come into government. It's a blue lights arrangement to allow the DA and the Freedom Front and the PAC to get into cars that have blue lights and that can be driven There is no revolutionary imperative that one can identify and say that this was the real reason why the ANC went into that coalition. The same could have been achieved with the EFF and MKP. They shunned their own brothers, their own comrades, and went to form a coalition with Steenhuisen and the Freedom Front to stay in power, but also to give them a taste of what it is like to be in power. However, there are talks in the corridors that this was actually prescribed by business, by the business community, by very big business people who still run this country, who still control the economic levers of this country, and that was their desire, not necessarily the desire of the ANC.
I saw Helen Zille actually recently saying that part of what big business was saying to the DA is that they should prop up President Ramaphosa, and that was the express wish that a lot of business leaders sent to the DA as the chips fell in the election.
I couldn't help but notice the way in which Judge Hlophe put it last night on an interview at ENCA, referring to the instance where Zille had called EFF and MKP dogs. And he said that, well, there are male and female dogs, and if they say that we are dogs, the feeling is mutual. So the less said about Helen Zille, the better. I think that her agenda is sinister. I think that in a lot of ways, what has happened is regressive and is not progressive at all. This GNU or the alleged GNU is not progressive. It is not a small matter that the South African Communist Party is saying that this action by the ANC was a cop-out. It was a sell-out position. And in fact, people like me, I was also very concerned when they were even talking about it. And when it really happened, I became extremely worried about exactly what direction we are taking as a country.
There are those who argue, though, that this is needed for stability, to stabilize the economy, stabilize politics, and make sure that there isn't the kind of instability we see in some of the metros. What do you make of that suggestion?
It is needed to stabilize the poverty where it is. It is needed to stabilize the inequality where it is. It is needed to stabilize the effects of colonialism. It is needed to stabilize the structure of the apartheid economy where it is. It is needed to stabilize and to stop the advancement of Africans especially in a manner that brings them into the mainstream of the economy. The apartheid economic superstructure is still in place. You still have Soweto where black people live. You have Sandton where white people largely live. A sprinkling of black people, but generally white people live in Sandton. Black people live in Soweto. The black people in Soweto rely on the informal economy, what is now called the township economy. They are not part of the formal economy. The mining industry, the financial sector have not transformed. You do not have a bank that is a significant financial institutions that are controlled by blacks, by Africans, despite what was, for example, the noble intentions of somebody like Dr. Sam Motsuenyane, who saw the need for this already in 1964. So the stability that they're talking about is a stability that continues the status quo. Question is the status quo really what we fought for, what we want? Yeah.
I wonder on a personal level how you found your time as an MP in MKP and what it's been like in Parliament in this new moment in South African politics with this new political force, and what it's been like for you.
Politically, very exciting. Like I say, we have an opportunity to write a book. The pages are blank, and we will write history. A political history of South Africa will not be the same before and after the formation of MKP. But the reality of being in Parliament and being an MP is that there is so much administration, so much work that needs to be done behind everything that we do. Just people see people standing up in Parliament to ask a question or to make a motion and so on, but never appreciate the time and the effort and the coordination of the 56 MPs to get that just one question asked in a manner that everybody's happy with the wording, everybody's happy with the timing of the question, the target of the question, the political implications. So it's exciting in the sense that you get to be behind the scenes and discuss all of these things with other MPs. As I say, it is a very exciting time indeed to be writing this book that we have started writing.
And how are things going with the Progressive Caucus, the EFF and other formations that have decided to coordinate on the parliamentary front?
The Progressive Caucus always going well. I am aware that there was a meeting of the Progressive Caucus on Thursday night or Wednesday night, and I was not part of that meeting, and I believe it went well. There may be statements that people say here and there, maybe that give an indication that the Progressive Caucus, all is not well in the Progressive Caucus. But I'm not aware of antagonistic contradictions or differences that will cause a rupture in the Progressive Caucus at the moment. The differences will be there. Opinions will be expressed. Some will like the opinions, some will not like the opinions, but I'm not aware that there is anything to be concerned about.
In terms of the EFF, we're in an interesting moment now because, I mean, a lot of people are moving from the EFF to MK Party, and of course that's creating dissatisfaction within the EFF. But on the other hand, ideologically speaking, it seems that in large part MKP and EFF are quite close together, and the two of them are probably going to have to work together to achieve the ideological goals that they have. What's your thought on this balance that needs to be struck between unifying on the one hand, but of course competition between the two on the other?
I'm actually not qualified to talk about the EFF. I can talk about MKP, but I'm not sure that I can talk. I'm knowledgeable enough to make to talk about the EFF ad nauseum. I am aware, however, and I'm conscious of the fact that we need to work with the EFF. We need to work with the other progressive forces that are in Parliament to present an alternative to the current status quo and the current situation where water is standing still and there is no movement. We need to move things forward, and we need to work together to do that. But I cannot give you the exact machinations of exactly what is happening in the EFF and what is happening in, well, I can tell you what's happening in MK, but not in the EFF. I do know, however, that the two need to work together.
Sure. To change tack somewhat, I mean, you're someone who has vast and deep experience within the South African state and state-owned enterprises, having led various of them. The load shedding crisis that we went into, particularly in the last 5 years, where things just deepened and it became a catastrophe when the country was told it was going to be resolved. As someone who led Eskom during a period where, it has to be said, in terms of the data, the problem of load shedding was much better, and in many times had been eradicated. How do you make sense of that period in Eskom, which just devolved into this catastrophe of stage 4 and stage 6 after your time there?
So, to put it very simply, in a manner that even I can understand, South Africa's electricity comes from coal. 85% of our electricity comes from coal. And the others are just frills. But if you have a major problem with coal, you will have load shedding or you will have shortage of coal. We have 500 years of coal in the ground. We have power stations that have the capacity to produce 52,000 megawatts of electricity. They have, at 100%, that's what they will produce. On a day like this, demand is 26,000 megawatts.
Sure.
Maybe on a terrible day, maybe the 21st of June in winter when it's very cold, it will be 31,000 megawatts. But your machines can produce 52,000, and all they need is coal. So what is between the coal and the machines? Human beings. Human beings that walk with 2 legs, as my father would say. So it is the ability of the human beings that stand between the coal and the machines to make sure that they organize everything in a way that coal can be delivered. So if I were to answer you directly about, so what happened? Why did we have load shedding after 2018? Well, Andre de Ruyter was just an incompetent coot. He did not know what he was doing. Pravin Gordhan to step in and say to the entire Eskom staff, not just management, staff, that your increases this year will be 0%. When you say your increase will be 0% this year, and inflation is at about 4-5%, you're actually saying, I'm going to cut your salaries by 5% or 4%. And you're supposed to be happy with it and make sure that you go and get that coal and generate electricity. What does that do to morale? I could never understand, and I've said this several times during interviews, that I think that the problem at Eskom is management competency. I've seen how Eskom functions. When the morale of staff is high, and when the managers and engineers know what they're doing, you have no reason to have load shedding because you have as much coal as you want and you have the machines. It's not like we have machines that can only give us 18,000 megawatts of electricity and demand is 30,000. Then you have a problem. Then it's not a human problem. Or it's not like you've got machines that can give you 52,000 but you don't have the coal. So the problems are man-made, human-made. The price of coal, the way that people maneuver to extract rent out of the situation, to get out of poor people as demand for electricity as much as they can. I do not still understand why Eskom needs a 40% increase in tariffs when we have the coal in the ground and the machines have already been built that far exceed what we will ever consume by way of electricity as a country. It's a matter of organizing organizing the staff, organizing to extract the coal at a reasonable price and to generate electricity for people until you can get alternative sources of electricity. Coal is what gives us electricity today. It's 85%. You can't wish that away. You can't have a very quick just transition away from coal very quickly in a way that does not cause a major disruption. So a combination of a desire to transition very quickly and just sheer incompetence was actually what caused load shedding. As I say, if you think it was not the unavailability of a resource or the unavailability of the machines and technology to generate electricity, it was the human being.
And do you think that with Minister Ramaphosa coming into office and the kind of abatement that we've seen over the last 7 months or so, that things are heading in the right direction, or do you think that there's still more that needs to be done differently?
I think that you have a set of or a group of committed generation engineers, competent generation engineers at Eskom. The new CEO is an old hand at Eskom. So he understands what needs to be done. He'd been quite there for some time. He's an engineer himself. And so those people have been at Eskom for a very long time, and they understand what needs to happen. Minister Ramaphosa is a very good person. He can dance. He's charming. He can laugh. But it's the engineers and the mobilization of the Eskom employees to move the coal to the power stations and to generate electricity in a way that, in a sustainable way. And I think that over the last couple of months, what they have been doing is getting a balance that we were able to get in 2015, and not just able to get it in 2015, but maintain it for about 3 years until Pravin Gordhan stepped in, unceremoniously and illegally fired a very competent engineer, Mr. Koko, and the rest, as they say, is history. Went to get the rater who had collapsed NAMPAC, and the worst share price of NAMPAC historically was under the rater. The worst load shedding in South Africa was under the rater in history. So I do not see what those universities in America saw in him to make him, I don't know if it is an emeritus professor or what he is, but yeah, he's handsome, he looks good, and he's able to talk himself out of a corner, yes.
And there are some who say that, in fact, the problem somehow came from your tenure at Eskom, that there was some kind of holdover from then that affected the Derator tenure, and it was actually kind of a delayed problem. What do you say to that?
There are people who say that, but I'm not aware that they have been able to define exactly what that is in clear terms and say that this was the holdover from Molefe's tenure. What I know is that when I was there, I got there in April. No, I think it's earlier, in March or February. And yeah, February. And then by August, we had stopped load shedding. And after we had stopped load shedding, and that continued for 3 years. But I also know that when that happened, I had very bitter fights with some people in the coal industry who wanted to basically extort from Eskom, higher prices. You must go and look at the increases in the price of primary energy between 2015 and 2018. About 2%. We simply said to the people that were supplying us with coal, sorry, there's no money, and we're experiencing load shedding, and Eskom is experiencing a hardship. You will give us the coal, not at some exorbitant prices. We will stick to the agreements that we have with you. Nothing more, nothing less. And they were still unhappy with that. They wanted more. They wanted more than what was in the agreements. And we resisted that, and we resisted increasing coal prices. I mean, the price at which Eskom was buying coal. And as they say, some of these people are very rogue, and the rest is history. I think that a narrative and a campaign was built in a manner that resulted in what then subsequently happened. But these people, I mean, Glencore, for example, has been found guilty of bribing state presidents in other jurisdictions, not just presidents, but ministers and judges. They've been found guilty of bribing judges by the Attorney General of New York. It's not like there was a kangaroo court that was held somewhere and that found them guilty. By the courts in Great Britain, by I think in Australia as well.
In some places, they admitted guilt as well.
They admitted guilt and paid the fines. And they admitted that they had basically done it. And so it is only in South Africa that Justice Zondo ignored what we were indicating to him about how they had been operating and how they had been trying to squeeze us from a corner to pay them. And I said it in the Zondo Commission, an extra 6 billion rand over 3 years that we did not have.
And we will get into some of the Zondo Commission and your views on that. But on this Glencore issue, because strangely to me, I mean, one of the biggest moments in the commission was this conversation about Glencore, and particularly when you revealed the political connections that were involved with Glencore, current President Ramaphosa's then involvement in Glencore. And one expected whatever else was discussed, that would be, that's quite a serious thing given Glencore's history. And it was pretty much sidestepped in the report.
History and reputation.
What did you make of that? President Ramaphosa's section when he was cross-examined didn't really come up very significantly, and then in the report it's not dealt with in any great depth. But even the idea of Glencore and their agreements with Eskom didn't come up much in that report.
Well, what was telling was that, and I couldn't believe it when it happened, there was an attempt to deny that now President Ramaphosa had actually been the chairperson of Optimum, which was Glencore's operating entity in South Africa. And when I raised this, and I said to Justice Zondo that, you can go and check. I mean, this was covered in the media. For example, if you want a specific reference, this and this magazine reported that President Ramaphosa had been the chairperson of Optimum. He was appointed as chairperson of Optimum after having acquired 9.82% of the shares. Go and check a Zondo Commission report. Judge Zondo said, are you saying that President Ramaphosa was chairperson of Optimum because of that magazine article. Quite belittling actually at the time. I couldn't believe it. And I said, but why doesn't President Ramaphosa come and deny this? Why is Judge Zondo choosing not to believe me? So he asked me, are you saying because of this magazine article? And in fact, there was a lot said in the media that day about the fact that I had relied on an obscure magazine to say that President Ramaphosa had been a chairperson of Glencore. And in fact, at some point, I think Glencore, Efron even tried to deny it as well. And that night I went and researched more, and lo and behold, I come across a SENS announcement from the Johannesburg Stock Exchange that announces that Mr. Ramaphosa will be the chairperson of Optimum. And the following day, I presented it to Justice Zondo, and he just, it was like, by the way, oh, okay, so, all right, fine. He does not even refer to it in the report, in the report. He does not refer to it, and nor did he consider that a significant fact, especially in the light of I had been saying what I was saying, because I don't think from the time that he was chairperson to the time that he became deputy president of the ANC and then of the country, there had been sufficient cooling off period. And that is where the corporate governance thing steps in. That is the point that I had been trying to make. He missed it completely. I don't think, maybe he didn't understand it, but that is the point that I had been trying to do. But that is part of the reason why I say that the Zondo Commission was, if you read it properly, it's like a schizophrenic document, because the evidence that is in there and the findings do not tally. And that is the reason why we have launched a review of the Zondo Commission report, at least as it relates to me and the findings concerning me. And maybe I should stop at this point, because it is then a matter that is sub judice. But yes, it was quite astounding that the evidence was ignored completely. Yeah.
You were one of the people who Justice Zondo singled out as deserving of particular blame.
Yes.
What do you make of those findings and you know his suggestion that further action should have been taken against you, even of a criminal nature?
There is nothing wrong with that finding, as long as it is backed by evidence. Fact of the matter is that there is not sufficient evidence. There is no evidence to suggest that his findings were correct. As a result of that, I think that earlier in the year, the National Director of Public Prosecutions said, the Zondo Commission is not helpful. The Zondo Commission report is not helpful. It does not give us material that can make us go after these people. She was right. That Zondo Commission does not have the evidence in the Zondo Commission, and the findings are, like I say, schizophrenic. There is disjuncture. They don't relate to each other. Part of the reason is all of those things that he accused me of and that he said I should be sanctioned for. And I'm quite happy and ready to defend myself if there is anything to be defended. The NPA, the Hawks, the police are presumably have been investigating. And not during the Zondo Commission, even before the Zondo Commission, I presume, and after the Zondo Commission. But they have not come to me and said, I have a case to answer. I was hauled to the Palm Ridge Magistrates Court.
Yes.
On the 29th of August. It took a very long time for the prosecution to come up with an indictment. And the matter was finally transferred to, and the indictment is a very short document. And the matter was finally transferred to the Johannesburg High Court. So in these matters, when you're presented with an indictment, you're allowed to ask for further particulars, for the prosecution to explain why they're saying this, where's the evidence of this and that.
Sure.
So we submitted a very lengthy request for further particulars, to which they responded and promptly dropped 2 charges, and then said they're withdrawing the indictment. They would like to go and rewrite it. After so many years of investigation, basically the indictment is not ready. The indictment is not ready. So we're going back on the 31st of January. And it is now the 2nd of November. And since we were in court last time, they have not given us another indictment.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's not ready because they are the one that they have to redo because of the further particulars that we requested.
And so the next date is 31st of Jan 2025.
Yeah, and it's not for trial or anything, or not even to plead guilty or not guilty. We're not there yet after 2.5 years.
We're still talking about just securing you at court.
Exactly what you say. What did this guy do on such a date, at such a time, at such a place? Yeah.
Fam, I just wanted to interrupt this episode to let you know the 4 ways you can help SMWX. Way number 1, you can invite me to speak at your institution or company. Way number 2, you can advertise on this channel. Way number 3, you can become a member of this channel. The link to the membership is down below. And number 4, you can buy merch, that's books or hoodies. Now let's get back to the episode. All our contact details are in the description box below. Did the media intensity, the Zondo Commission, and the subsequent criminal, as you say, proceedings at a very early stage take a personal toll?
Oh yeah, they did. Because one of the things that I did is I left Eskom in 2017. And for 7 years, I did nothing. And the reason I did nothing was because I actually felt that let's give them a chance to present something. And in 7 years, they have not presented something that is tangible. The indictment, the case that is there, the indictment is not finished. Corruption Watch brought an application to declare me and others as
Was it delinquent?
Delinquent directors. So they filed a notice of motion and a founding affidavit, and they said why they think I should be declared a delinquent director.
Yeah.
We answered. We submitted our affidavit to respond to their allegations, and they disappeared for 3 years, even more, I think. They did nothing from the time that we filed our papers. They did nothing.
So that never went to...
The next time we heard from them, they asked us that, is it okay if we withdraw this matter? They did not provide us reasons, but it was pretty obvious why they were withdrawing the matter. I don't think Corruption Watch would have just let go of a state capture bone just like that.
Sure.
Yeah. I think that saying what they say they are, they would have pursued it to the bitter end. They didn't. And they just withdrew the charges and asked. They said, guys, we're withdrawing the charges. can we just agree that each party settles their own costs? And we agreed, because there is this thing in the courts about costs and NGOs, that the work of NGOs must not be burdened by a lot of costs. So we agreed. But that does not mean that they did not slander my name, and they did not damage my reputation by alleging what they were alleging in those papers, which are quite public. Their withdrawal was not even, there was no media interest in their withdrawal. There was a lot of media interest in the beginning.
I was just thinking, it wasn't widely reported, because this is the first...
The withdrawal?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some reports, but it was not widely reported. It was in small print. You're right. I mean, if you did not see it, it means that it was not reported. The Special Investigations Unit, with much fanfare, announced maybe 5 years ago that they are going to sue me and others, Mr. Koko, 3.2 billion. I don't know if you remember that. The SIU is going to recover 3.2 billion from the state capture, what. Right?
Where are we there?
They issued summons. Very shoddy document. Very, very shoddy document. One of the things that I was doing in the last couple of years was just to keep myself busy with studying law. Even as a law student, I don't think that any of my classmates would have submitted something like that, even as a second-year student.
Yeah.
It was a shoddy document. So when a summons and the particulars of claim are not clear, you can raise what they call exceptions.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so you can raise exceptions. We raised, in my case, no less than 32 exceptions.
My goodness.
To their summons.
Yeah.
Yeah. We raised these exceptions with them maybe 3 years ago.
And a lawyer will tell you the worst thing is that an exception is raised against your summons.
Yes.
Your particulars
because, you know, the exception, it says, you say, my lord, we find this acceptable because it is vague and embarrassing.
You haven't even proved the thing
set out. I don't hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
There's no course of action. Yeah. You're saying you want to recover from this man 3.2 billion. You haven't said how the debt arose. What did he do for you to say that he must pay you 3.2 billion?
Yeah.
You must at least say that. Even if it is not true, just say something that we can say, okay, he caused a car accident and therefore there were damages and so on and so forth. And the car accident happened and so on. Now, you're not even saying there was a course of action. There was this event that happened. So they never responded to our 32 exceptions. They haven't up to today. And they're quiet about it. And they're quiet, but they're just quiet about it. And nobody's asking, Mr. Molefe, the 3.2 billion, what happened?
And when was that?
This was maybe 4 years ago.
Wow.
4 or 5 years ago, when they raised, it was in the press. I remember that the morning television and the news, and the business media, and it was everywhere. SIU to recover 3.2 billion, and then your social media commentators, it's about time, go get them. And then we raise 32 exceptions. It's a pity that you can't talk about these things like issue a press statement to say we've just raised 32 exceptions. It's not just not done. You just raise them and expect them to respond. And they haven't. And I feel compelled to say now that they haven't responded to our exceptions. And we're still weighing our options on the matter. So, yes, that is the game that was being played. But somebody captured it quite succinctly when they said, when these guys go after you, it's not the guilty finding that they're after. They're not there to prove their case. The punishment is in the process. It is sufficient for them that you will be faced with so much legal bills from responding to their improperly articulated allegations. You have to engage senior counsel, you have to engage lawyers and so on, because you can't just leave it as well. Because if you leave it, they'll just get a judgment, default judgment. And you have to pay the lawyers. And they come with a tidy penny. It costs a lot of money to pay the lawyers, to defend yourself. So that's the whole idea. That I think they were hoping that by now I would be bankrupt and not able to sustain myself and just give up. And not fight and just say, okay, let it be. Unfortunately for them, I haven't.
And that's all.
And the reason I haven't is because I read once a story from a Vietnamese general. They were asking him, how did you defeat the United States of America? He said, it's very simple. Those guys were more powerful than us, more firepower, better training, better everything. We only did one thing. We showed up. And that is what has been keeping me going, to say that I will show up. I will show up. If they throw a summons or whatever, court documents and so on, I'll show up. I'll go to the lawyers and say, guys, please, you have to help me, but I'm a law student. I can even do the drafting myself and you can just settle it and charge me less and so on. But I show up. I wake up in the middle of the night and I go through the documents and I prepare and I assist and I just show up. I just don't give in up to where we are today. Just showing up is very important.
And we have seen with these so-called state capture matters, with Mr. Koko, with the Mulanya case, that after a lot of the talk, matters were withdrawn or cases were struck from the roll.
Yes.
So this is not just in terms of you, but it has happened before as well.
Indeed, and I had a rumor, I don't know if it's true, that they may have lost some of the documents from the state capture files. I don't know how true this is. I don't know, maybe the NPA can answer, but I read about that in the press when they said that there was no maintenance of the database, and so the database is now cannot be used and so on. Yeah.
And you're absolutely happy to answer whatever comes your way. If there's an indictment drafted that the court, you're happy to appear and defend yourself.
I will show up.
The Gupta family. We're in a different era now in South Africa. The state capture narrative in some ways came and went, quite frankly. But there was a time when, you just couldn't go anywhere without being bombarded with the state capture narrative. And I don't want to underplay the importance of corruption in South Africa, but I also feel that there was a narrowing of the narrative so that corruption was framed only as a problem of the Gupta family. What are your thoughts on the Gupta family itself? Do you think that the pressure they are purported to have put on the South African state was improper? Or do you think that the state capture report, the significant reporting that was done around that period, got it all wrong?
Well, we have a very wonderful document called the Constitution. And the Constitution gives people rights. And one of the rights in Section 35 is the right to be presumed innocent until you're proven guilty. So the allegations against the Gupta family are allegations. They need to be proven in a court of law. And they must be, of course, be brought to a court of law to answer for whatever allegations there are. The allegations must be formulated properly in a manner that they can answer to them. And I can't answer those allegations for them. However, it's quite disturbing that they fled to Dubai or wherever they are in the world now. And when their statement was, we are leaving because we don't think we will get justice in South Africa. And they left. And they have not been able to get them since. And they sat there in Dubai. And they have identified them. There was even some people said they were arrested in Dubai and so on, but it turned out not to be true. And then, rightly, South African government starts extradition proceedings to get them to come from wherever they are, to come and answer these allegations so that they can be found guilty if they are guilty by a court of law, as our law and our constitution demands. Well, the rule of law is not just lip service. It should be in substance as well. And it should apply also even to the worst amongst us. That's what Mandela said. It's not how you treat ordinary people. It's about how you treat even prisoners or people that you believe have committed the most heinous crimes. They also must enjoy rights that are in the Bill of Rights and in the Constitution. And that is how the worth of a Constitution is measured. But anyway, so these extradition proceedings get to be heard in Dubai. And I believe 2 weeks ago, a judge in Dubai dismissed South Africa's extradition application because in Dubai, it is a requirement that you can't just say you want somebody to come and answer for a crime. You must also issue a warrant of arrest. They must truly be wanted. And for them to be truly be wanted by the authorities and by the law and by the police, there must be a warrant of arrest. And South Africa could not produce a warrant of arrest. I don't know if you know about that, but
I don't, and I'm amazed it's not.
It happened 2 weeks ago. Oh, it was also in small print.
Yeah.
So the Ministry of Justice and the NPA in fact, in Dubai, flew to Dubai to attend court proceedings for the extradition of the Guptas.
Yes, I recall that like about a year or so ago.
Yeah. So it was heard 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
And the requirement in Dubai is, if you say Sizwe Mpofu-Walsh, you want him in South Africa, you must have a warrant of arrest. And there's no warrant of arrest for the Guptas.
Sure.
So, given that the Constitution says they are to be presumed innocent until proven guilty by a court of law, given that we are a state that has resources, that is not incapable of pursuing those that we think have committed crimes, we have a justice system that works, what is the difficulty then? Or was it just hype?
So you studied law in the intervening period?
I studied law in the intervening period.
Wow.
And
so what are your degrees that you've now accumulated? And what led you to study law?
Partly because I wanted to draft my own papers and reduce my legal costs. Yeah, but actually law, I discovered that maybe law is something that I would have studied out of high school. See, my father took me to a commercial high school. I did accounting, economics, maths, and those things.
I see.
From Form 1. I don't know if you know what Form 1 is.
Yes,
but it's
yeah.
grade, I don't know what grade it is now.
Yeah.
To matric.
Right.
So when I finished, it was obvious that I should do a BCom, which I did. And then I did a postgraduate economics at the SOAS. So I see you're from Oxford, but yeah. And then I did a Master of Business Leadership.
Wow.
And then now recently I've just done the LLB.
Amazing.
And I finished actually my dissertation for the Master of Laws.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm starting to write my project proposal for Doctor of Laws.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow.
So I want to be like you when I grow up.
That's funny. I'm just about to finish my LLB now. So
is that right?
Yeah. So we both were probably studying at a similar time.
Yes. So you must. The legal research is it's fascinating. My master's thesis was on a very obscure topic. That's euthanasia. So I just wanted to take my mind off things.
Sure.
Yeah. Sure. And however, you can say that there's a dark side to it because it's about suicide. It's assisted suicide. So maybe I was even suicidal at the time.
Wow. So it's a fascinating topic.
Yeah.
And have you found that your study of the law has, changed the way you looked at society? And I suppose it's also very useful for Parliament. I mean, you must be one of the most qualified parliamentarians that we have.
I doubt it. I mean, the party leader is.
That's true. Yeah.
Is your fellow?
Quite a few.
Yes. Yeah, and you and him, is he from your alma mater? Or?
Yeah, he was at Cambridge, I think.
Oh, he was at Cambridge. Yeah. Sorry, are you? Yeah, you fight over the boat race. Yeah. So, there are people that are much more qualified than I am in Parliament. Yeah.
Must have been fascinating to study law while you were grappling with these legal issues and your own battle.
Yes. I mean, when you study, I don't know if you've come to the law of evidence and you see what's happening at the Zondo Commission and it's happening to you. You begin to appreciate justice and the absence of justice. Do you know that in South Africa? Okay, firstly, we don't have courts of justice. We have courts of law. Big difference. So you don't go to court for justice. You go to court for them to apply the law. Whatever the law is. And so we don't have courts of justice. But justice is largely unavailable to people without means. If you are a person and an ordinary person, a worker working a manual job, and a most vociferous or a most vile delict is committed against you. Just the cost of getting an application going, a notice of motion and a founding affidavit that is settled by an advocate is thousands and thousands and thousands of rands of money that most people don't have and therefore do not have. And in a lot of instances, powerful organizations and powerful people, even the government, takes people to court that are not able to defend themselves. And I looked at this and I said, I'm about to become a victim of this. That I will be remembered in history as the most vile state capture something. Not because that is true, but because it was designed in such a way that I will not be able to defend myself. You see, so now that I realize that the odds are against me, and then I'm quite determined to show up. So I joined the battle. I study law, and I remind lawyers about cases that have to do with what I have to do, what has to do with me. But the moment that triggered my interest in the law was when Thuli Madonsela published a report, Chapter 9 institution, public protector, supposed to protect the public. And she said, I suspect that this is happening. I've made these observations, and I recommend that there must be a further investigation. And I said, no, but you can't just say things like this that cast aspersions. It has to be reviewed. And the lawyer said, but what are you going to review? She has not made a finding. She said there must be a further investigation. And yet the aspersion is cast. Everybody, when I walk in the street, people see state capture number 1. And yet she admits there was no evidence. There must be further investigation to get evidence. And then she says a commission of inquiry must be established so that we can get to the bottom of this, right? So aspersions have been cast. All I can do is wait for a commission of inquiry. And that wait is not like 2 weeks. Years. I mean, for it to be established was like 3 years. There was an ajibaji about whether it should be established in the first place.
Yeah.
And then it was established. And then it goes on and on and on and on. And then I go there, and then my evidence gets ignored. And guess what the judge says in the end? There must be a further investigation. This is essentially what Judge also said. That there's a possibility that Mr. Molefe may have done this and this and this and that, but we need a further investigation by the authorities. And those guys know that he said that they must investigate. But then their head of the NPA says, but we don't have enough evidence to do anything. So it's frustrating. And the question is, so where's justice in all of that? Can a Chapter 9 institution, can the public protector violate a person's rights? And what happens when that happens? What happens when that happens? When rights have been violated through negligence, basically, because you can't cast aspersions and then not come up with the evidence. I think that should be a principle that everybody holds very high. And what happens in that instance when that has happened? What do you do? I remember talking to one advocate, and he put it very succinctly when he said, and I said, but the fact of the matter is that she has just violated my rights by casting aspersions and not coming with the evidence, and then asking another forum to go and investigate. And yet, even that forum then says another one must investigate. So you are known as this vile person, and yet your matter, the evidence relating to your matter, or the adducing of the evidence, is being pushed to another forum, ad nauseum. So he said, you know what, Mr. Molefe, nobody's going to believe your story. I mean, it's just as good as saying I've been raped by Mother Teresa. Nobody's going to believe you. Yeah, and I thought that was quite profound, and that actually jolted me into reading the law with quite a passion. Yeah.
Fam, you asked for some SMWX merch, and we have delivered. I know you're always looking for ways to help support and grow this channel, so why don't you buy yourself an SMWX hoodie? Super comfy, super warm, and you can represent SMWX. You can check the link down below for how to buy your SMWX hoodie and help build and grow this channel so we can bring you more interviews, more analysis, and more educational insights. Now let's get back to it. In terms of your other life outside the law in studying economics, but also working within important developmental state-owned institutions, what do you think needs to be done to get us out of this trap that we find ourselves in of 1% growth and 0.5% growth? And you look at the medium-term budget policy statement and it says for the next 5 or 4 years, we can hope to achieve maybe one day 1.8% growth. And we have other countries, around us growing at 5-6% for 15 years, like India has. What do you think we need to do to get ourselves out of this hole that we're in and truly reach our developmental potential? We've got the resources. We're geopolitically, strategically placed, but for some reason, we just can't get this economy and the society going in a developmental direction.
We have to get out of this frame of mind of consuming things, and instead get into a frame of mind of doing things. Big difference between the manufacturers and the consumers. We have to have a manufacturing economy. The food that we eat must be planted. It's put into the ground and watered and looked after before it can come to the market. Who does that? And what are we doing to make sure that we understand that process? And that in that process, we are not net eaters, but net producers. So we produce more actually than what we eat. So now, everything that we do, the porcelain plate that you eat out of, this glass, who made it? Where is it being made? What is our involvement in it? Is our education geared to teaching us to making things? What's the status of engineering? Engineering is very important because that is where things get made and designed and ideas of how things can work and machines and so on. Who makes computers? Why can't we make them? Why can't we make things? Anything. Eating utensils. Why don't we make them? Do we make them? Why don't we make beads? The beads that the Ndebele women use are imported. How do beads get made? And why is there no one in South Africa making beads? Or maybe I might be wrong. There might be some NGO somewhere. But this must be the central question that needs to be asked. Is we need to move from eating things to making them. So the most prominent thing that I see as I travel from here to home are malls. Shopping malls. This one, we're in the shopping mall. There are so many shopping malls that spring up everywhere. Every street corner now there is a shopping mall. It's good for the property market. I suppose it's buildings and so on. But those shopping malls don't make things. They bring finished goods to us, and we have to go and scramble to make some money to come and buy those things to consume them. Rather than scrambling to produce them, scrambling to find a market, to sell something, not just in South Africa, export stuff that we make here. We assemble cars here. Why can't we make our own car? Made in South Africa. I know people are going to talk about competitive advantage, but I still think that the fact that we're assembling cars means that there could be a reason to manufacture a car. I don't know if you know, and very few people talk about this. But during my time at Transnet,
Yes.
we established a research and development unit. And we said to the research and development unit, you must design a train, a locomotive that is made in South Africa.
Wow.
Not a wagon. We do manufacture wagons, by the way, in Uitenhage and in Germiston and other parts of the country. The wagon is easy. Wagon is a wheelbarrow. But the locomotive is an engine that pulls the wagons of a train. Right? We recruited the best engineering students, the A students, the students that passed their engineering degrees with distinctions. We recruited them to the R&D unit. And we got them. They came and they were excited. And we designed this locomotive.
Wow.
It's called the Trans-Africa locomotive. We designed this locomotive. And then one of the things that we said was, because we need locomotives, we're going to buy 1,000 of them. 1,000 locomotives. And those 1,000 locomotives were bought from the Chinese, the Germans, and the Americans, and the Chinese, the Germans, and the Americans, and the Canadians, Bombardier.
Right.
And I said, or we said at the time, all these 1,000 locomotives will be assembled in South Africa. The people that say they can supply us with locomotives must just bring the parts here. And the parts that they bring must not be things that we can get in South Africa. Like the windscreen of a train. There's no need to import a windscreen or a seat. We make seats for BMW with our cowhide. So the best seats in the luxury sedans is from hide from South Africa. So the seat in a train is not a complicated thing to do. We can do. So we agreed that there would be local content and we will do that. That's the 1,000 locomotives. Yeah? And then we said, these R&D students must sit with the people that plan the putting together of the trains. And they must go understand the best technology of the different parts of the train from the 4 manufacturers from the whole world. And out of that, we built the Trans-Africa locomotive, made in South Africa. The locomotive was launched actually by President Zuma while I was still at Transnet. It was launched, it was tested and commissioned. It was ready to operate. Unfortunately, soon thereafter, there was a request that, we have so much load shedding, can you please go and assist us at Eskom? And I went there. And Mr. Gama continued with the program. And under him, I think 3 or 4 more locomotives were built, made in South Africa. Those locomotives are there. There's nothing wrong with them, except we've stopped the production of those locomotives. In fact, when we bought the 1,000 locomotives, part of the contract said, if we can build our own locomotive, we will scale back what we're going to buy from you.
And for what reason was the project stopped? Was it?
I don't know. I had left. And so the people involved there were the Americans, the Germans, the Canadians, and the Chinese. For the first time, the Chinese we were going to work with the Chinese as a BRICS partner in locomotive procurement. Guess what? The tender for the 1,000 locomotive is considered, even by the Zondo Commission, to have been corrupt. But the corruption is only as far as it relates to the Chinese. There's no allegation that we did any corruption with the Americans, the Germans, or the Canadians. Even that is the case now, that is for which we were arrested. It was the procurement 1064, 1064 locomotives. That is the case. This is about it's not even, the charges against us is not even corruption. It's not money laundering. It's not racketeering. It's just PFMA violation, fraud. But the fraud, 2 of the fraud charges were dropped. So I don't think they'll be able to prove any fraud because now I know what the elements of fraud are, how it's defined, and what is the case law on fraud, and I don't think it satisfies any of that. PFMA violations, personally, I don't think there's a case. But now we're going to court to pay these legal fees. But the manufacturing of the locomotives has stopped. Just when you finish here, pick up the phone and ask Transnet, where is the Trans-African locomotive? One day I was at the airport after I had left Transnet. I think I was still at Eskom, or just after I had left Eskom, but I was just passing through the airport. And a young engineer from Transnet comes to me and he says, Mr. Molefe, guess what I have in my bag? I said, what? And he opened the bag, big bag, and it was a model of the Trans-Africa locomotive. And she says, I'm catching a plane. I'm flying to Kenya and Tanzania. I'm going to show them these locomotives, and I'm going to try and get orders so we can build it for them. I was so excited. I became very, very emotional. But I think soon thereafter, nothing came of it. So to answer your question, which is what should be done, I think we must do things.
Yeah.
We must do. If we can just get into the frame of mind of doing things. This mic, who made this mic? What are the components in this mic? Can we not manufacture this mic? Now that we are such a big hip hop, what, Mapiano, but where do the mics come from? Everything that is around us, the camera, let's make things, and growth will just come by itself as long as we just focus on making things.
And just finally, in terms of the energy trajectory, if we are to get out of this situation where now, we're celebrating having the lights on for 7 months, to actually move to a high growth energy trajectory where we not only have the energy for, our survival, but we have the energy that we need to become an economic powerhouse on the continent and in the world. What do you think that trajectory looks like?
I don't know if you've ever heard of nuclear energy.
Indeed.
Nuclear energy is very powerful. You just take some elements, uranium-236, bombarded with a neutron. It causes such a big explosion that it's difficult to stop it. It goes on for about 3 years. Quebec is a nuclear energy plant. It's the only one in the continent. And it was built in 1984. And it's been operating since. And the energy from Quebec is reliable. Nuclear energy is very powerful. But Quebec is the only nuclear energy reactor, 2 reactors on the continent. The United States has 99 nuclear reactors. They don't have a shortage of energy. France has, I think, over 200 reactors or 100 reactors. 75% of France's electricity is generated from nuclear. Even Germany, that says they don't want to burn coal anymore, and that they are moving to renewables and so on. The renewables have failed them. But when the renewables fail them, they don't have load shedding. because they can buy energy from France, which is nuclear energy. So I think that there is the energy solution for not just South Africa, but for the continent should come from two sources going forward. Two main sources. I agree that maybe coal damages the environment and so on, but that is what we have now. That is what we have now, and we can't just abandon it just because people who are emitting more CO2 than us are telling us to stop. It has to be in an organized fashion, not just haphazard, and in a manner that results in load shedding and destruction of value and negative growth. Coal is what we have. We must continue using it, but we must look for other sources that are, and unfortunately, I don't think that wind and solar work. Not for now. And I can tell you a long story about wind and solar, but I think they're a scam. Inga and nuclear. Inga from the Congo River. The Congo River is about, I think, 3 or 4 kilometers wide. It's 1,000 kilometers long. It straddles the equator over 1,000 kilometers, and it has a solid flow right throughout the year. There's no winter there. And so it's possible to generate up to 60% of Africa's energy needs from the Congo River.
Wow.
What is the problem? People can't agree. It's the human beings. The technology is there to get hydroelectricity from the DRC and even supply other countries. As far as here, we would benefit from transmission lines from the DRC and the countries that are between here and the DRC who have a net energy deficit would benefit. But also nuclear energy, especially now that we have what they call small nuclear reactors. So they don't have to be the scale of Quebec or the scale of some of the big nuclear reactors in the world. They can be small and manageable.
There's uranium available here and on the continent as well.
Lots. We export uranium. By the way, the problem there with Traore, is it Traore in
Burkina Faso?
Yeah. France gets its uranium from Burkina Faso.
Oh, right, and Niger, I think. Yeah.
And Niger, yeah. And Niger, I meant Niger. And they pay them a fraction of the market price, international market price. Now with the new coup leaders, they said they will supply Russia with the uranium. Russia is prepared to pay market prices. That economy is booming. Not only that, Russia said, we'll even build you nuclear power stations to give you people electricity. There's uranium in South Africa. I think the biggest source of uranium might actually be Namibia. We have it here. There is a lot of uranium in West Africa. In fact, I read once there is a cave where they believe that there was a nuclear reaction that happened in that cave hundreds of years ago, where a nuclear reaction must have taken place from the way that the cave has. So we have a lot of uranium in Africa, uranium deposits. So that is not the problem. And in any way, something like Quebec, you don't refuel all the time. The fuel is at subatomic level. So you get a pellet as big as this of uranium that obviously has been enriched, that is bombarded with neutrons, and that gives you so much power. It's unbelievable. Yeah. So I'm convinced. In fact, my doctoral thesis is about nuclear law.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
A country that does not have any nuclear reactors, what laws must it pass for it to enter the nuclear space safely.
Very interesting.
Yeah, safely.
Well, Mr. Molefe, we could go on for hours about various different topics, but I think
of course,
we know your time is at a premium as well, and you've been very generous with that. So
no, thank you very much.
We appreciate you coming to SMWX, and thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, no, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation.
The pleasure was ours. Thank you very much for watching. Help us get to 200,000 subscribers. Comment down below, and thank you for keeping it locked on SMWX. Aye.